Good morning, or whatever time it is for you. Hello, I am Dakota, and this is my current reading list slash books that I'm just really genuinely, truly, avidly excited to read. I was thinking about what video I should film today, and I knew I had to film a video because it's a beautiful day today, and I was thinking about books that I've read as of late, but I couldn't stop thinking about books that I'm going to read soon and the book that I'm currently reading right now, and I figured let's just talk about that. Let's talk about books that I'm so excited to read at the moment. I know every time I do videos like this it gets a lot of engagement because I suppose you're all interested in what I'm excited to read, as my taste is, how would I word it, not necessarily eccentric, more so just a flair for the morbid, penchant for girlhood and unique explorations of girlhood, classic lit, the fun contemporary lit, and at the moment I've got a really exciting taste for memoirs, for really fascinating lives, so prepare to see some memoirs in this list. But without further ado, this is in no particular order because I cannot do lists. I have demand avoidance, so it's kind of more so just a little collection, a compilation, a curation of books that I want to read, and I pick them out as I go, as I intuitively pluck them from the list. So here is no particular order whatsoever, books that I want to read as it gets cooler, because there's nothing quite like reading in autumn and winter, because in summer I'm around terrorizing the towns. Before we jump into the reading list, I want to have a really quick word about this video's sponsor, Squarespace, but there's also a really exciting announcement in this little integration. If you are a writer or artist of any medium, which I bet you are because you're a part of my community, I am launching a literary and arts journal slash not so secret cult via Squarespace, where I provide a monthly prompt and you can create something based on that prompt and submit it, and I curate a lovely little world of art for you and others to consume. I crafted slash am still crafting this platform myself, and it is quite involved, but luckily for me I'm partnering with Squarespace to bring it to you. Squarespace just makes the whole process of building a website so seamless and, dare I say, enjoyable, and I love Squarespace for turning passion projects into professional projects and morphing dreams and concepts into tangible realities. And this is just done so simply by the fluid engine design system and elements that I can eventually play with, like email campaigns and an online store. You can check out the collective at nowheregirlcollective.com and make yourself familiar until submissions open, and in the meantime you can head to squarespace.com/DakotaWarren for 10% off your first purchase if you want to build your own website or passion project too. I'm going to start with my current read on this list, the book that I'm currently in the thick of reading and will not say much on because I want to make a video about this again, but this is Elvis Me, obviously from none other than Priscilla Presley. And I'm about probably about a quarter way into this book so far. I haven't actually read too much, but I had to rush to find this book. This is also really hard to find. I feel like it would be easier now though with the release of Sofia Coppola's movie, but I wanted to rush to read this prior to the release of the movie, because if there's a film coming out and there's a book that the film is inspired by or based on, I am going to read that book really quick. And I'm a little bit upset actually that the fact that it's already out in the US, the film, and we have to wait until January in the UK. What's that about? Why do we have to wait like a whole 3 extra months to see this film? Everyone's gonna stream it. Well, I'm not. I'm not government if you're watching this video. Behind closed doors I sat and waited, remembering our life together, the joy, the pain, the sadness, and the triumph from the very first time I heard his name. Decades after his death, millions of fans continue to worship Elvis the legend, but very few knew him as Elvis the man. Here in her own words, Priscilla Presley tells a story of their love, revealing the details of their first meeting, their marriage, their affairs, their divorce, and the unbreakable bond that has remained long after this tragic death. A tribute to both the man and the legend, Elvis Me gives Elvis fans the world over an unprecedented look at the true life of the king of rock and roll and the woman who loved him. That sounds so nice. Continuing on with the theme of memoirs, this is the book that I'm really excited to read next, and this is Edie Sedgwick's biography from John Stein, edited by George Plimpton. And if you don't know who Edie Sedgwick is, she was Andy Warhol's notorious muse, and she was the it girl of her time. As one of the reviewers puts it on the back of this book, she was the spirit of the 60s, and these pages capture her power to dazzle us. This is the book of the 60s we have been waiting for. And I don't know if you've noticed or if I've mentioned it across any of my platforms. I probably definitely have, but I've got this penchant for the 60s as of late. In the 1960s, Edie Sedgwick became both an emblem of and memorial to the doomed world spawned by Andy Warhol. Born into a wealthy New England, Edie's childhood was dominated by a brutal but glamorous father. Fleeing to New York, she became an instant celebrity known to everyone in the literary, artistic, and fashionable worlds. She was Warhol's twin soul, his creature, the superstar of his films, and finally the victim of a life which he created for her. The story of a short, crowded, and vivid life, which is also the story of a decade like no other. I'm so excited to read this, and I also am excited to read this because I'm really interested at the moment in the notion of what is an it girl. The contemporary it girl doesn't really exist. She's more of a notion than a body. She's a concept rather than a tangible thing, because I think of the social media-ification, that's a fun word, of our generation, and how everybody has a chance to have that spotlight and that limelight and be anyone they want to be, versus the it girls of the 60s and whatnot. It was about their confidence and charisma and the viewer that brought the public to them, and they were in the public eye that way. And so I want to do a bit of an exploration on what makes an it girl, and if the it girl still exists and how she still exists, for a personal kind of little essay situation. But also I'm really interested in the notion of the man's muse and the tragic life of the man's muse. This girl was doomed from the start the second Andy Warhol scouted her. The next book that I want to read is also a biography. This is the last biography in the collection, I swear. I'm just in a real autobiography, biography, memoir phase at the moment, because I find people's real lives so interesting. I don't know why. I'm in this anti-fiction. I don't know, if I can tell something so obviously, blatantly, advertently fiction, I'm not interested. I'm turning into my mother. Anyway, this is Billie Holiday, Lady Sings the Blues, with William Duffy, and this is one of my favorite musicians of all time. The talent that this woman, oh my god, it's incredible. So this is her life story. From the poverty of her childhood to the world of drugs and brothels, Billie Holiday fought her way to stardom and her first triumphant concert at Carnegie Hall. She was both a force and a victim of her times, and in spite of her personal tragedies, she gave the blues a sophistication never since matched by anyone. A hard, bitter, and unsentimental book written with brutal honesty and having much to say not only about Billie Holiday, the person, but about what it means to be poor and black in America. An old man gave me this book for free at Portobello Market in London because I was looking at it, and he said, oh, you can just have it. So thank you, random man at Portobello Market. And I'm very excited to read this. It smells really good also. Side note, I love musty old books. So I'll be talking about this eventually in my memoir era. The next book I'm really excited to read is, I was really lucky to be sent the Booker Prize shortlist, and if you don't know what the Booker Prize is, it's a system of plucking out really incredible literature. And so I went to the shortlist announcement, if you will, evening, and that was really exciting to see some of the authors and hear the books and all those things. And I get to go to the actual prize ceremony at the end of November, and I've been sent the shortlist, and I have to get through all of these books, which I will, but this is one that I'm really particularly excited for, and this is called Study for Obedience from Sarah Bernstein. A young woman removes from the place of her birth to the remote northern country of her forebears to be a housekeeper for her brother, whose wife has recently left him. Soon after her arrival, a series of inexplicable events occur. Collective bovine hysteria, the demise of a ewe and her newly born lamb, a local dog's phantom pregnancy, a potato blight. She notices that the local suspicion about incomers in general seems to be directed with some intensity at her, and she senses a mounting threat that lies just beyond the garden gate. This seems like a really fun book because everyone's saying that it's haunting, and it's exhilarating, and it's startling, and it's remarkable, and it's thrilling, and I love creepy, eerie works that are incredible commentaries on something else, and this sounds like it's going to be exactly that. Apparently it's a master meditation on life as a survivor. I'm very excited about this. I flicked through and I've read a few pages here and there because it was a book that I had with me on a train, and so I was kind of just sneakily flicking through to see the writing style, and it looks like I'm going to love it. It's got that kind of shocking short sentences, a lot like I can compare it to the Deloriad by Masuri Williams, and I can compare it a little bit to The Dolls by Ursula Scavenius. I might be saying that wrong. I don't have these books in front of me. This is all from here, baby. The next book that I'm really excited to be is Elisa Victoria's Old Lady Voice. And I'm not gonna lie to you whatsoever. I picked this up purely for the cover. Look at this cover. Isn't that a brilliant cover? I am absolutely in love with the look of this book. I endorse judging a book by its cover. We should normalize judging a book by its cover. While her mother is in the hospital with a grave but unnamed illness, Marina spends the summer with her grandmother, waiting to hear whether she'll go to the home or be bundled off, newly orphaned, to a convent school. There are no rules here, but that also means there are no easy ways to fend off the visions of sex and violence that torment and titillate the girl. Titillate is such a wonderful word. Presenting a unique and vivid take on the coming-of-age story, Old Lady Voice reimagines childhood through the eyes of its one-of-a-kind, hilarious and endearing narrator, a 9-year-old who can swear like a sailor, but think like a novelist. Doesn't this sound so unique? And also, I did a little bit of a Google, because I can see here that it's translated by Charlotte Whittle, and when it's translated I get so excited because where is this from? You never guessed. Well, you probably guessed. It's Latin American literature. I believe it's Spanish literature, and I am notoriously in love with Latin American literature and the surrealism and the way that it explores emotion through these really kind of brash, sharp ways. For the most part, the books that I've read, at least, not to grossly generalize, but I'm very excited to read this. I had a look at some Goodreads reviews as well, and whilst they are mostly in Spanish, there was one that I came across in English that said that it's a really incredible exploration on girlhood, but not the sweet, cutesy kind, the gritty, angry, horror-filled kind that's filled with sex and violence. So that's right up my alley. The next book that I'm very excited to read, and if you know me or you know this channel, you know that I love Rachel Cusk, and if you don't know me or this channel, please go read some Rachel Cusk. This is Arlington Park from Rachel Cusk, and this is one that I've not read yet. If you're new here and haven't read much Rachel Cusk, I really recommend Second Place. That's my favourite Cusk book of all that I've read thus far. This one here was shortlisted for the Orange Prize for Fiction, and it says, Arlington Park is an ordinary English suburb. Over the course of a single day, the story moves from one household to another, revealing its characters. Juliet, enraged at the victory of men over women in family life. Amanda, warding off thoughts of death with obsessive housework. Sully, about to give birth to her 4th child. Maisie, struggling to accept provincial life, and Christine, the optimist and host of a dinner party where the neighbours will come together. It says here that it's a strikingly good novel, funny, poignant, savage, tender, and appalling. When a novel is called appalling, that excites me. I also just love Cusk's explorations on domestic life in general. She really has this kind of... she can get under your skin in the simple domesticities that we all kind of despise but do anyway, and these lives that we all tend to live, but she really pulls them apart and dissects them in ways that we should but don't, because we don't want to reveal the horrors lying beneath. The next book might be a surprise to some that I haven't actually read, but I've read excerpts and I've been hunting it down for a while, but you know how I like to thrift just about everything or get everything secondhand somehow. This is Rilke's Letter to a Young Poet. Letters to a Young Poet, plural. This particular edition I thrifted, and it is translated by M.D. Herter Norton, and I really like this edition. The lady at the charity store said that this is a rare edition, so she charged me a bit more for it, but I mean, hey, it's pretty. So these letters are timeless. Rilke said himself that much of his creative expression went into his correspondence, and here he touches upon subjects and ideas we recognize as characteristic in his poetry. Side note, Rilke is an incredible poet, and that's how I know Rilke. Biographical notes at the end of the volume give an account of the poet's life at the time, which will be of interest to all readers of Rilke. I love personal looks into people's lives, as I keep saying. Am I just nosy? Is that the issue here? At the moment, I just really I love collections of letters as well as memoirs and everything. It's so nice to have the art and the product of the person and then be able to read into that person's inner workings in an introspective kind of ultra personal way and compare them. I mean, I feel like everything I say these days kind of comes back to the whole art versus artist debate. Can you separate one from the other? I mean, I think yes and no. There's different elements of both. And sometimes I don't want to separate one from the other, and that's why when I really love a piece of art, I will find the inner workings of the artist. But then sometimes, I mean, I guess it is situational, because if I don't particularly think the artist is a wonderful person, I will say, yeah, you can separate art from the artist. Anyway, we're all learning and growing. I'm excited to read that book. The next book is Jeanette Winterson's Sexing the Cherry. And I read my first Jeanette Winterson a few months ago, and that was Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit. And that was recommended to me by one of you, so thank you very kindly for that, and I absolutely adored it. It's an incredible book on an exploration of small town and religion and queer identity and all those things, and I loved the writing style of Jeanette Winterson. And then I went to a charity store and found like 3 of her works for £1 each. So I got this one and 2 others, but this is the one that I'm really excited to read. Sex and the Cherry fuses history, fairy tale, and metafiction into fruit of a memorably starting flavor. Doesn't that sound so unique and incredible? I am constantly on the hunt for a really strong, unique voice in any artist or writer, and Jeanette Winterson is one that I've found as of late that I'm absolutely enamored by. 2 more books, because I wanted to make it a nice even number to 10, because if it's not 10, I'll think something bad will happen because I have crippling OCD. So this is Haruki Murakami's Dance, 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 and I mentioned this in a recent video of the book haul that I got, but I really am excited to read this one, because after I said that I've got this and it's my first Murakami, everyone commented saying that this is actually a great book to start with, and Norwegian Wood and whatnot is not a good book to start with because apparently they're quite dull in comparison, and so I accidentally somehow made the perfect decision. And so I'm really excited to read this. And it says, high-class call girls billed to MasterCard, a psychic 13-year-old dropout with a passion for talking heads, a hunky matinee idol doomed to play dentists and teachers, a one-armed beachcombing poet, an uptight hotel clerk, and one very bemused narrator caught in a web of capitalist advanced mayhem. Combine this offbeat cast of characters with Murakami's idiosyncratic prose and out comes Dance, Dance, Dance. It is an assault on the senses, part murder mystery, part metaphysical speculation, a fable for our times as catchy as a rock song blasting from the window of a sports car. What a blurb. What a blurb. And the review says, how does Murakami manage to make poetry while writing of contemporary life and emotions? I am weak-kneed with admiration. That simple review line in itself sold me on this book. I am looking forward to this. I've been putting it off though, because I hold, when there's a particular author, a book that's very highly celebrated and I've not read and everyone expects me to have read, I procrastinate it because I feel like I place a lot of value on it, and I think people expect a lot from me when I talk about it and everything. So this one does keep getting pushed back, but I am going to get to it this autumn/winter. The last book that I'm really excited about, I thrifted and I think is really cool. And this is, it's pretty big. This is The Decline and Fall of the Love Goddesses from Patrick Agon. And this is basically an exploration on the golden age old Hollywood film stars: Rita Hayworth, Jane Mansfield, Betty Hutton, Linda Darnell, Veronica Lake, Betty Grable, Susan Hayward, Dorothy Dandridge, Frances Farmer, Marilyn Monroe. And this is an illustrated kind of filmography and exploration into their life. Yesterday's goddesses, today's memories. My one qualm with this book, which I have flipped through but have not read cover to cover, is that it is an exploration on women's lives and portraying them as sex goddesses and has-beens. It's written by a man, so it's going to be very male-gazy, man perspective. Wow, this incredible promising woman, and now she's washed up, or now she died, and all these things through the male eyes. But I mean, I am obsessed with these people. I think that the lives they led, whilst tragic, were fascinating, and they are absolute. They are so strong and so persevering to be who they were in that time. And so I want to read about their lives in another memoir kind of way. Biography, I should say. That is the 10 books that I'm really excited to read next. I mean, sometimes my reading list can include books that I'm not so excited to read and have to read or want to read, whether it was for things like university or videos or just books that are quite controversial and I want to join in on because I have FOMO. But this is a full list of things I'm really excited to read. And every time the sun tucks itself behind clouds, I don't feel so bad anymore because I know that I can read. And I'm really excited for that. So I suppose we'll talk soon about the books once I've read them. And I'd love to hear what you're reading in these cooler seasons, or warmer seasons if you're from below the equator. But let me know. Let's talk about the books we're reading. Thank you for being here. And I'll see you next time. I hope. I love you.